So before I bring on Allison, here's what I want to tell you. She's one of my favorite people on the planet. She's incredibly generous. She's been a huge supporter of my wife's foundation, for example. And we genuinely have a very safe love affair. We adore each other. And I love the way she runs her businesses. She's high integrity, and she's really, really smart. She's built and grown a whole bunch of businesses. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her from her stock bio here. First of all, besides being a #1 best-selling author, which we're really going to walk through, she also started her first business when she was 19 years old. Her client list does include Ben & Jerry's, Supercuts, Merrill Lynch, and Charlotte Russe. I think it's Russe? Help me out with that, thank you. But now what she's focused on, she works with high-level CEOs and in general CEO businesses. Now we've got this great business strategy, which is something I highly recommend you think about as well, which is how do you actually find some complementary businesses where you can grow your business together. So instead of talking more about her, I want you to meet her. I want to witness her, and you to witness her, and find out just exactly how she's built her business in a short period of time. So without further ado, let us welcome Allison Maslan. All right, Allison. So,
hi, everyone.
Hi. All right, so for everyone who doesn't know who you are, what's your 30-second commercial when someone says, so Allison, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I came out of the womb as an entrepreneur, and I started my first business at 19. I've built 10 companies over the last 30 years. You can do the math. And I absolutely adore business. I think it's the best way to change the world, to get your greatest work out into the world and inspire others. And that's what I love doing most. So now I give back, and in the work that we do, myself, my team of CEOs, we mentor business owners all over the world. We have Pinnacle Global Network is our mastermind going into our 8th year. So there you have it.
Very good, very good. All right. So big thing, what we're going to start out with is the time you built Pinnacle, you of course created a book and a workbook. So let's begin and just get this rolling from the point of view of you started with the book with the goal of what specifically? What was the business purpose of your book?
Well, it was interesting because I was at that point into my 8th company that I was running, and I had always wanted to write a book ever since I was little. And so this book, actually, I started writing it the day my daughter went off to college, literally the day. And so I put, in fact, I think we've got a slide on this. I seriously put my heart and soul into the book. It was the culmination of all my years in business, all my years of helping people into this book. And so it really was, I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't have a real intention, which is kind of interesting because just think if you really had the intention and knew you were doing. I had no idea how my life was going to be revolutionized.
Okay, very good. So no big plan, which is actually, it's actually refreshing to hear that in a way. So,
it was accomplishment of writing a book. So I would just like to applaud you all for how many #1 or best-selling authors out here now? I mean, to me, like that was like, whoa, I have a book, okay? Then it was like, all right, let's get the book out there. And so it, as I said, from the book, all these opportunities started happening for me and doors started opening. Of course, I was setting an intention for that to happen.
Okay, so I am curious because you've actually never told me this story before. When did you write the workbook?
Well, the book was just about done, and then I thought, well, why don't I just take the exercises from the book, because my book is very much of a work-through book. Same exact exercises in here, I just put them in a workbook so that people would have a book to write on, and they both went to #1. So I had 2 #1 bestsellers at the exact same time.
Okay, and you had an interesting way to promote the book to become a bestseller, because you didn't have the same community we have. So what were some of your strategies you used to push it to bestseller status?
I wish I had had this community, let me just say, because I spent a lot more money than you did. To get it to #1.
Well, why don't you just tell us, what did you do?
So what I did was, interesting, on Twitter, I saw a woman promoting that she had gotten her book to #1, and so I reached to her in London, and I said, could you teach me what you did? Well, she had never coached anyone to do this, so this was, this is 2008. My book originally came out in 2009, and so she said, sure. I will show you. Well, anyway, she was very well connected, so she helped me put together 25 launch partners that happened to have a decent sized list. And we prepared 6 months ahead and put a whole campaign together. I even did like a blog tour and countdown 100 days, to my launch. And the thing is, I still think that you all should do this, even though your book's already to #1, so there isn't the pressure. But the exposure is just tremendous.
So let's get into that a little bit. So how many launch partners did you say?
I had 25 launch partners.
20, and so I'm going to ask this from the perspective of everyone here, which would be, let's assume, so you had no list, and you're promoting a book. I mean, who's going to promote a book without some kind of a back end? Like, what did you pay them? What was your offer you had? So you didn't have anything to offer them, really, did you? Other than your beautiful self, who's so loving and lovable.
Oh, thank you. Well, let's see. I actually had developed a software so between these two, I was also developing a software at the same time, which still exists today. Interactive Life Coach, which goes along with the book. So I gave everybody access to the software for free. I gave them a consultation with me. Okay. No, I didn't have a lot to offer at that point. Okay. My business ingenuity that I was sharing with them. And they were, I'm a go-giver. They were go-givers. Okay. So find people that really want to help you get it out there. And usually people do. You've got a great book. It's like, let's help share that.
Wow. So they didn't have any big back end. You didn't have any significant way for them to make money at that point. It was sort of like, hey, here's my intention. I'm looking for people who could be my partner someday. And you just asked.
Yeah, I mean, you could give them 50% of your book or 100%. It doesn't really matter, because you're not using the book to make money from the book. You're using it to open doors for you, right? So it's really about the exposure. So if there's any other thing that you can offer them, great. So yeah, they jumped on board, and we had emails set up for them. We made it easy. We had social media posts, and it all went towards one day. And then we launched it in January of 2010. And it was very exciting, like just what you guys went through yesterday, and watching it go, up to #1 in several divisions and so forth. And that was just the very beginning. I thought at the time, oh my gosh, this is like, I have to race, I have to do all these things now. But it's interesting, because it's been, going on 8 years, and the book has had longevity for all this time.
That's amazing.
Continued to.
That is amazing. And so your next slide here is you talked about speaking on television. So how did you use the book to get on TV? And what was your strategy, your angle? Did you have any resources? Did you work with publicists? Did you just write your press releases? What was your strategy and your angle?
Okay, so I used to run a full-service advertising and PR firm. So I really did understand marketing and positioning and PR. But I will say that I didn't have the time with everything I was doing to really do my own PR. And so I'll give you some tips on that.
Yep.
Because I hired a top agency in New York, and sometimes I couldn't get them on the phone for 2 weeks. It was very, very frustrating. So especially since I knew the business, and I thought, this isn't right. I would say the best thing to do is to, rather than to get a big PR agency, get a publicist. You could even hire someone to come in and work for you 10 hours a week during a given period of time to, to get your book out there, to get you in different magazines and so forth, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But that's really what we did. I went on tour. I went to several cities. And for every city, I did a book signing, and I'll show you some pictures in a second.
Okay.
And then I got on television in that city. So I was in Cleveland, I was in New York, I was in Texas, I was all over the place. And then on social media, I said, hey, I'm going to be at this bookstore, come join me. So, it was,
So now I'm going to give you I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to throw this out for anyone else here. So there is a website that has a lot of resources on it for authors. It's called Reedsy, REEDSY.com. On there are a lot of resources, including people who have worked for the publishing industry, but I've found publicists on there. But do you have some resources, recommendations on where someone can get a decent publicist that doesn't cost a fortune?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. Put an ad on Craigslist. There are a lot of people out there in marketing. Now, let me be clear, there's a difference between, because there's a gray, line there where traditional PR is getting you on the news, getting you into magazines, getting you on radio. Well, now PR can mean social media as well. You just need to be very clear on what it is that you want. Because otherwise you'll be on social media, and that's not, what I'm talking about is getting it out there on social media, of course, and in blogs and Facebook Lives and so forth, but then on the traditional media as well. Really what PR is coming up with an angle. Create a news story about your book, or find something that is pertinent. Like if there is big talk about diabetes and obesity in this country, create a story around it. It has to be news. And then, of course, oh yes, you have this book, and they will talk about the news. You write a press release you can get online. There are all kinds of templates. And then it's just smiling and dialing. You literally just call who's the producer, and you pitch them the story. Or you email them the story, and you follow up. You can do this yourself. It's not hard.
Yeah, one of the things that we did yesterday, for example, some people started already, is we did a whole segment where we provided 3 example press releases, and we used a service and actually put up a release about my book being a #1 bestseller, and it got picked up in over 430 affiliate stations.
Yeah.
So it's syndicated. Now, that's not the same thing, but it's at least a press release. What you're talking about is an active press release to a producer that says, I'm available and I'm an expert, and there's something going on in the news right now, and I can talk about it.
Right. You have to just stay abreast of what's going on that's tied to your book and make it the story. They're always looking for content, and if they say no, just go back to the drawing board with a different angle, and then, they'll talk to you again. So you just have to be, consistent with that.
Very
Absolutely.
good. All right, so what's the next one? Let's talk a little bit about going on tour. Let's talk to someone, again, like some people will be like, what the hell is tour in the first place, and how can I even get that hooked up? Like, how do I get the ball rolling if I don't have an unfair advantage?
Yeah, and I think it's something that you need to decide if you want to do. I don't know that it's absolutely necessary these days, because remember, this was 2009, 2010. The book industry has changed a lot.
Yep.
There's so many more people on social media. So, I funded my own tour. It wasn't inexpensive, right? So, but it did get my name out there all over. There's nothing like face-to-face, right? And so now my brand is national. I do speaking engagements all over the country. And so I'm glad that I did it. I wouldn't say that, I was just like lining them up out the door. But all we did was call the Barnes & Noble and, make sure you can get the book into Barnes & Noble. If you can get it on the online, and they'll get you in there. You just call them up, you set it up, you call the television station ahead of time, even if it's a week ahead of time. Say, I'm going to be doing a book signing in your city. and it also aligns with the story that you have. And I picked like, I don't know, 8 cities.
All right. Okay. So,
and then you have that interview that even if people didn't watch it, doesn't matter. Now show that television interview all over your social media, have it on your website. It really does give credibility.
And we talked about Celebrity Boot Camp yesterday and how you can use that to get media engagement. So I think in terms of the book talks, what I've been using personally, and I don't know if you do the same thing. I mean, you've got traction now, but anytime I speak, I always have boxes of books. So I'm going to give you an angle, because one of the things that Allison's going to talk about shortly is how she gets booked and how she started getting booked for speaking gigs. So I'm going to give this little idea. It'll kind of seed this. But whenever I speak, I say, well, would you like me to do a book signing too? And whether I'm doing a free speech or a paid speech, or where I'm doing a speech or a platform speech where I'm speaking and selling, I will just have some books printed up and delivered using CreateSpace, which is cheap. It's $200 a book. Oftentimes the host will pay for those. But then, because you're offering to do a book signing, they're like, yeah, that sounds great. They'll set up a table either at the end of the day or during a lunch break. After you speak, you can go out there and start signing books. It's a great way to connect. And of course, every time someone takes a picture, I say, please follow me on Facebook, and I start creating custom audiences. It's very organic, but it works like crazy because you're with a highly qualified audience. So I want to pass it along to you, which is, I know we're going to start talking about getting booked to do speaking gigs, but I'm not sure where that is in your presentation. But is there anything else about there? Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about authority and door opening.
Right. So it's so interesting because when you're an author, your likelihood of getting booked for speaking or on television goes way up. And even a client friend of mine, Sam the cooking guy, I don't know if any of you know him, but he has his own show. He's had it for years. And, you know, he even says it wasn't until he became an author, even though he had a show, that he really became recognized as an authority.
Okay.
So for me, well, it's a picture of Vivian. This is back in 2009. That was the first time I met Vivian because I had at the back, I had a big party for clients, like a book signing and everything, and the money was donated to Just Like My Child. And that's how and then Ariel came. And
that's when Vivian fell in love with you.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been a love affair ever since.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about booking talks, because this is, I think, the biggest opportunity for you right now is getting speaking. And I'm going to be talking about speaking after this too, but so you've, let's just talk about getting an organization. Well, I think
something's really important. How many of you feel somewhat of an anxiety of feeling like, oh, I need to put my talk together now? Okay. So here's a little trick, because I felt the same way. Because when I wrote this book, it was going to be a completely different talk, things that I had talked about in the past. So I got some really good advice. Book a bunch of talks. Don't worry about your speech. Just get booked first. And you know what? When you have dates that they're expecting you will get that talk done. I don't care.
You'll pull your talk right out of
I
heaven.
don't care if it's the night before. You will get it done. And it does not need to be perfect. My early talks were so bad. I want to tell you, they were. In fact, I hired a speaking coach. This is kind of funny. Can I tell this?
Oh, yeah.
I hired a speaking coach, and he was a comedian. And, I'm not a comedian. It's not my personality. But he had me up there jumping to the right of the stage, and your arm goes here, and you do this, and you say this. And, I just felt so awkward. And I just remember people looking at me like, what the hell is she doing?
Oh, so you started doing it?
I started doing it.
You took bad advice.
I took really bad advice, but it was actually, I'm glad I did it because it was a learning experience. I did it for like 3 talks, and then I literally ripped the thing up and I said, I'm starting over and I'm just going to speak from my heart. And ever since then, everything changed. But I was so nervous too. But I will say, just book the talk first and then worry about getting it together. Otherwise, because could take months for you to get talks booked. It could take another 3, 4, or 6 months. And if you get stuck, or you are a perfectionist, any perfectionists in here? You're adding on another year. So don't do that. Start picking up the phone this week, get some talks booked, and then you'll get the talk done. And you'll thank me for that.
So one of my favorite things that Allison's bringing are a couple of her tools, which I'm going to give to you also, which is how she gets booked, her email, her script, and it's just a little 3-pager that's got her information on it. I'm going to make sure you get it, okay? So this is kick-ass. So yay, Allison!
Yeah.
Okay.
This is all, I've not really shared this. You guys are this is awesome. All right, so how do you find, first of all, where to get a talk booked? The first thing to do, is just to go online and Google industries, your industry or wherever your target market is. Find out what conferences they're having, trade shows they're having, associations, and even if you can just get booked in one association, for instance, a chapter of something. They have chapters generally across the country, or they'll have several others. And what happens is that once you do that one talk, and then you ask whoever who booked the talk, would you please write a testimonial for me? Okay. Yep. And then you find out who runs the other chapters, and you send them an email with the email that we're going to show you in a minute. And in the subject line, you say, referred by Susie Smith, who was the woman, and you show her testimonial. And all you need to do is to get into one. Some of these have chapters in every single city. So what are some of the organizations that have chapters that you've had great success speaking at that are available both to men and women, or one or the other? Well, NABO, National Association of Women Business Owners, was a big one. I probably have spoken to at least 35 of their chapters all over the U.S. and Canada. I've spoken at their national conferences. And then, let's see, PPAI, with Promotional Products Association, they have chapters all over. They have national conferences too. And, some of them are paid, where you get paid to speak, which is great. Others are not paid, and then you get to sell in the back of the room. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit too, because there's important things that you need to know when they tell you that you can't sell. There's some ways around that. What was I going to say? Oh, other associations. Really just industry associations. If you feel like, I'm not getting anything from the networking groups, okay? If you're in the financial industry, if you're in the real estate industry, you all have your own conferences. The other thing to do is when you do a talk, you can have a form that people rate the talk, they give feedback, okay? And you can also ask a question on there that says, if you enjoyed my talk, do you recommend any other associations or events that I could come speak at? Right. So I got a lot of talks that way. Every time I speak or sponsor an event, I also book other speaking engagements. So one will feed to another and another and another. And then once you figure out the industries and so forth, just research online. Some of them are organized, some of them are not. You have to do a lot of digging to find out who actually books the speakers. Sometimes they're hidden. It depends how organized they are. And you need to pick up the phone. And so actually, I want to show that first. One? Okay, so you want to treat it like a sales call. So how many of you have done sales calls before? Okay, you love picking up and doing cold calls, right? I know you love it. Okay, so booking a speaking engagement is, just think of it as a sale, because it really is, whether they're paying you to speak or not. You're just trying to track down who is the right person you need to speak to, and then you need to do some research. and say, you know, when are you looking for speakers? What kind of content are you looking? It's like you're interviewing them as well. And then, let's see, let me find this. I think I put it here. I'll back up.
Yeah,
I'm doing this first. All right, so what I used to do, because I used to be nervous picking up the phone, and I played a game with myself that I wasn't allowed to stand up from the chair until I made 10 calls. And I would do this every day. Okay? So if you did this for your business, and you know, Don knows, Don's a client of mine, he's got a call center, we say, pick up the darn phone. Pick up the darn phone. Okay, so then, this is what I say. Hi, my name is Allison Maslan. I run a company called Pinnacle Global Network. We work with CEOs that want to scale their business, build rock star teams, and have a more meaningful life. Who do you recommend I speak to regarding booking presentations?
Take a picture of that. I'll give you the copy also in the presentation deck, all right? Pretty darn simple.
So you put in the fill in the blanks, okay, of what it works for you.
Okay.
All right.
And so how often does that work?
Well, they're super helpful. Mm-hmm. I mean, they really are. You know, I've never had anyone be rude to me that way. If they say, look, we're not really booking, we're booked through the next year, great, when would be a good time for me to call back? Sometimes they'll say, oh, we are having a board meeting in March, so call back then. And so then what I do is I follow up with an email. And if I cannot get someone on the phone, which happens a lot, I do send this email. And I've been doing the same email since 2009. And basically, I say, you know, Allison's going back on tour again. And she's
so this is coming from your assistant in quotes.
Yes.
So if you don't have an assistant, you create an email account that is your assistant. Are we clear?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, it's all in positioning, right? They're like, oh my gosh, she's coming on tour again, right? And so, you know, whatever city that you want to go to, and make it a big deal. I said, look, I want to support your members, so I'm happy to do it for you. They're like, oh, that would be great.
Great.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can't read it from here. Should I read it really fast? Just can
yeah,
anyone?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll read the first chunk. So it says, Dear Susan, Allison Maslan is going on tour again and would love to come support your business owner audience. She is a high-demand international speaker, business growth expert, and regular contributor to Entrepreneur Magazine. So in your case, it doesn't matter what you got for cred, at least you're an international #1 best-selling author, right? Or you're a #1 best-selling author.
Yeah, amen.
Mm-hmm. She will leave your audience spellbound with her high-growth strategies, tools, and inspiration. As an entrepreneur building 10 companies over the last 3 decades, Allison will bring tremendous wisdom, insight, and energy to your event, but fill in any kind of positioning you have. She is continually invited to present to audiences of business owners, corporations, and industry associations worldwide. And due to rave reviews, she is often invited back again and again. That is positioning. That is seeding. That is actually very complex NLP, by the way. So Allison Maslan will give your audience of business owners the exact steps they need to take massive leaps in their business. She has inspired thousands worldwide to make tremendous shifts in their businesses and in their lives. Her talk is full of strategy, step-by-step tools, and inspiration through the roof. Allison shares an unforgettable presentation that not only impacts your business bottom line, but your focus, your drive, and your purpose as well. So then you've got your bio in here, and I'm just going to let this advance. And then with her speaking topics, which frankly can be whatever your book title and subtitle is and anything else you talk about. And then you've got your testimonials here, which presumably you've gotten over the time. You can get those from any customer. And then Allison is being featured in a documentary called Inspired by 11, which is actually, you made it.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
I'm actually was in a real documentary.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I watched it, and it actually looked like something you made up. And I mean...
No.
Okay. But let's say you could insert your celebrity boot camp interview plus your sizzle reel. But yeah, pretty simple.
But let me just say, I didn't have all that stuff in the beginning. This is added on over time, but it's the same basic email that I did. And it's all, everything in there is true. I wasn't lying, but it is about positioning. You have to make it be a big deal, And you all have had some major accomplishments in your life, and I think a lot of you don't put it in your bio. You're like, oh yeah, I did do work for Procter & Gamble, or I did, put all that in there, for sure.
Okay, nice. Now the other thing you have that you include this with this, or what are we looking at right here?
I first send the email, and then they're interested, and then I send them different talks that we do. Okay. And basically what they want generally, and in the beginning I had one, but it's a summary paragraph, and then take away, what is the audience going to walk away with? And I'll give you a tip here. Always say they get tons of tools and strategies. A lot of times the people that run the talks, they're like, I don't want people to just get inspired. I want them to have concrete tools to leave with. So always use that word, tools and strategies, and that applies to pretty much every single business.
Great.
And if you have one talk, you could change the title for different audiences too. So, and I could take the same talk, change 4 or 5 slides, and it's got a little bit of a different, gist to it. So you don't feel like you have to create all these talks.
Great. So you take the headshot that you have here from Publish and Profit, which you all have now. You've got your bio, which we all have. It looks like you've got a quote or a mini testimonial, your description. Okay, in summary, I get it. And I know was there 2 parts to this, or is that it? Just
it goes
okay.
down.
So 3
more.
pages. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure you get Allison's document so you can model that for yourself. All right? Raise your hand if you. Okay. Oh, that's good. I was just going to, if you want it, yes. But raise your hand if you already have a 1 sheet. Do you have a 1 sheet? Okay, good chunk of you. All right, great.
And let me tell you, mine is a PDF. It is nothing fancy, and it has booked me in front of audiences with thousands of people in attendance.
I mean, I looked at it after you told me about it. I'm like, that's all right. I mean, I was expecting something holy, and it's like, no, it's just good. It's solid. The point. I'm not trying to make it.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah. It's just it doesn't have to be complicated. Is all that I have to say.
This is what I love about Allison. She'll tell me something, I'm like, God, I can't believe I just missed the mark again. Be like, it's so simple. You're really good at doing a lot of really good, simple stuff.
Well,
consistently.
Thank you. I like
that
simple.
That is a compliment.
Do you like complicated? I don't like complicated. No. All right, then the key is you have to follow up a lot. So if you don't reach them, or if they say no, or they're not interested, keep a spreadsheet, whatever you got to do, and you just have to keep calling. Eventually, I hired someone. And, this is like a customer service person. It's not expensive. You get someone part-time. And if the way for you to get your business out there is booking talks, get someone that all they do is get on Google, they do research, they find the person, and they send your stuff out, and they follow up.
I'm going to give you a bunch of places to get booked in my next presentation. So that's
awesome.
Good. All right.
All right. So then, once the book was out, all kinds of things started happening for me. I was on the cover of the Self-Made magazine. That thing went everywhere. I don't even really know what Self-Made magazine is, but I used that quote forever. I had San Diego Magazine came out to my office and filmed me with Sam, the cooking guy, and that was all over the place. So, and then from there, it's been Forbes magazine, Success magazine. I was interviewed in Success magazine. All of this was from the book. And me just putting myself out there. You guys have to really, get out there and don't be afraid to be vulnerable and all that good stuff. So.
I don't know if that's good stuff, being vulnerable. I'm just messing with you. Okay.
They need to get to know the real you.
True that.
You're the real you up here, so that's what I mean. I don't mean you need to be sobbing, that kind of vulnerable. Okay.
All right.
All right, so let me give some tips for when you're speaking or you're making your offer. Would you all like to learn that? Can we talk about that?
Let's do it.
Okay. So when you're doing your talk, give a lot of case studies. And people learn through story. So it's a way of selling without coming off like you're selling. It gives you credibility. And then people can relate to who the case study is about. If you give a couple, they'll be, you know what, I'm like him, and if I did that, if I hired him, then that could happen to me. So it's a way for them to encapsulate it. So, so I'll actually show you a few of those in a minute. The other thing is respect the time of whoever has booked you. Do not go over time. You want to get asked back, you finish on time. You know, that's super, super important. And if you're making an offer, make sure you've timed it so you have enough window at the end to make your offer. So that's super important, okay? And then there's other little things that I've learned, like if you're going to have a table and you're selling something, have it by the door when they're leaving, not the other side of the room, because no one walks this way to walk out. So just little things like that that I've learned. All right, let's see. Let's see. How many of you are nervous to make an offer from stage?
Well, not like this.
I mean,
I'm afraid. Yeah. You can raise them high. It's good.
I mean, who gets a little uncomfortable when you start making? I know that I did, and I had to really work at this in the beginning. I remember people would go, "God, that was an amazing talk," and I'd sell one book, you know. And I thought, what am I doing wrong here? So, first of all, however you're speaking, your speaking voice, your grounded speaking voice, you need to have that continue through the offer. So a lot of times you'll be, you know, really comfortable, and then you'll start to make the offer, and you're like, you know, and I start sounding like Minnie Mouse. You know, your voice gets really high, and I have this book, and you know. So you really want to practice, because you want to make it sound like your talk. You just want it to make like it's part of your talk. Like it isn't talk offer, it's all together.
So you kind of like start talking like the theme from Shaft. Is that what you do, Allison? I think that would be hot.
Yeah, I don't even know if I could do that. The other thing too is if you've given an amount of time in your promise, that amount of time, so let's say you have 45 minutes, and you finish your talk and you're starting to make your offer, and someone that is hosting it, they start walking towards you because they think you're done, right? Because everyone's clapped and so forth. Just keep talking. You just need to, don't worry about, you were promised this time, don't do anything that you weren't promised. And then just continue. That's really important. That's something that I had to learn, because I'd start rushing and I'd mess the whole thing up. Let's see what else I wanted to say about that. Let's see. Yeah, I think mainly that is it as far as, you know, making that offer. Just speaking from your heart, right? Because you know that if people buy what you have, their lives are going to change, and that's what this is really about. Yeah. So just forget the fact that you're selling anything, because you're not. You're the catalyst that's going to get them to where they want to go. And that's very powerful.
Right. It's true. Yep. Good.
Yeah. So, and I think, didn't we hand them so you guys could see the offer sheet and how?
Yeah. Do we have those? Let's hand them out. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through. This is both a learning experience. It's actually real. I speak at Allison's events. Sometimes I've spoken and I've sold. Other times I've just presented. But one thing that's very important is that you go out and start making relationships with people, especially those that have events. So what you have in your hands is a honest-to-goodness order form. And can you give me one of the order forms for your event too? I'd love to get one. Yes. Yep. Because I got to look at it as we teach our way through this. So this is, Allison does multiple events. I spoke at the last one, and I'm speaking at the next one. And this is, you know, you've obviously had a chance to see our order forms. Oh, you know what? I forgot to say this.
Oh, yeah, go for it. I think this is important. So, and I don't want to, like, stop talking about this, but I want you guys to know how powerful the book is. I'm going into my 8th year of our Pinnacle Global Network. with over 150 members of our mastermind. It's all started from the book. Seriously, that's what's in front of you all. Isn't that exciting? So exciting, and so many lives have changed. Yep. So go change lives with your book.
There you go. And that's why we talk about, building your escalation path. Every step. I've gone through that. I'm going to go through it again when we start talking about speaking. It starts with the book. It goes to speaking. But Allison has built a multi-million-dollar business, again, using the exact same steps and strategies.
But this has been an honor.
All right. It's great having you. Yes.
Thank you all. So thank you so much.
Okay.